This is the Urban Binge Radio. Sunday Flow.
So, getting back into these Dr. King hot topics in this Dr. King episode, I wanted to discuss 8 fun or hot facts that we might not have known about Dr. King. And we're going to run through these fast because the most important ones I've separated to discuss later on down the line in the show. One of the first things that I bet a lot of people probably did not know is before Coretta Scott King has children, she sung jazz and played music and played the violin. She sung jazz music and played the violin, had dreams of becoming a singer, but pregnancy stopped her playing. So a lot of people probably already know that she was playing the violin. She was a artist when she first met Dr. King. I think they met in school or something like that. I believe Miss Coretta Scott King was over in New England, is where she found her passion for music. And of course her mother, if people don't know her mother, I forget her name. She was a singer. I know her father is Obadiah Scott because that's a name you can't forget. Obadiah Scott is Coretta Scott King's father, but I can't remember the mother's name off the bat. But the mother was a singer, and Coretta Scott King found, loving her mother's singing, she found, I want to be a singer. But she once said that having children kind of stopped all of that, so she had to start having freedom concerts, where they would tell freedom stories and stories of slaves and stories of people who had hardship with white people, and sing songs in between these people giving these stories. I think she called it the freedom concert or something. So she found a way to maneuver what she loved in with having her children there at the same time. But of course, eventually that kind of washed over because her life rapidly changed with her husband being killed in the midst of such horrible Jim Crow laws and mistreatment towards black people in that time. So it's really hard for her. My husband, who was fighting for equality, is now dead, and I'm trying to continue on being a singer and take care of these children and be a first lady to a church where my husband is now, deceased, can't preach. And later to come, Martin Luther King's mom would be shot, and the following year after Martin Luther King was killed, his brother drowned in his Alabama swimming pool. I believe it was Alabama, his mansion.
I would be remiss if I did not share with you.
More than 50 years after her husband's death, Naomi King continues to teach younger generations, not only about the issues of the day, the civil rights movement.
A lot of people did not know, and still do not know, that ML had a brother.
But the man, also on the front lines of the movement, Reverend A.D. King.
We met at when we were like 12 and 13, and so I just can't think of a day of without him. I just cannot.
Naomi and A.D. married in 1950. She later attended the University of Alabama. She had a front row seat to her husband's work.
Whatever ML wanted done that he could not do, he would ask A.D. to do it, and A.D. would take it and do it in a heartbeat.
After graduating from Morehouse College in 1959, he went into the ministry, eventually taking over as pastor of First Baptist Church outside of Birmingham, Alabama. Then moving to Kentucky in the mid-60s to pastor another church. But he remained dedicated to his activist work. King's house in Birmingham was bombed in 1963 as a result of his activism, and he was regarded as one of the main strategists for the Selma demonstration. More than a year after his brother was killed, A.D.'s life would also end tragically.
I lost it because I said, drown? I said, well, A.D. was an excellent swimmer.
He was found at the bottom of the family swimming pool.
God simply said to me that A.D. did not drown. He was killed.
While his death continues to be a mystery, Naomi continues to keep his name alive. In 2008, she established the A.D. King Foundation.
He was funny, he was smart, he was just the utmost.
Well, Naomi travels promoting youth and women empowerment and entrepreneurship. She's also written books and been a part of a documentary about her late husband.
And they really don't know what happened with that. If he drowned or if he was killed. But people say he drowned in 1969, Dr. King's brother. fun fact or hot fact number 2, or when Dr. King met Coretta Scott King, she was scrubbing floors and cleaning up, I think, a school building or something like that. I can't remember what kind of building it was, but she was cleaning up basically like a janitor. Although she has white descendants though, and he is fully black, Dr. King was more well off when he met Coretta Scott King than Coretta was. So Coretta had a little bit of money. Dr. King was living in a nice apartment that the rent was kind of high on in their time. He also had a car and a job, a good job, from what one of the school members who went to school with them said. She's 90 years old, and they did an interview with her recently to find out more, because her and her husband were close to Coretta and Martin when they first met. So they all kind of used to go on double dates on the campus, at school, different places like that. But they end up losing friendship over the years. And of course, you know, I'm your friend here at school, but when I move back to my state, I'm probably not going to talk to you no more. So nice knowing you for these few years, but I'm going back to the ATL to my regular friends. That type of situation.
A love story of epic proportions, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Coretta Scott met in Boston, Massachusetts in 1952. King Jr. was studying for his doctorate in theology at Boston University, while Coretta was studying voice at the New England Conservatory of Music. A mutual friend from the 12th Baptist Church gave Martin Coretta's number, and they agreed to go out on their first date. They fell in love and married the following year, and settled in Boston for their first home until they moved to Montgomery, Alabama in 1954, where they continued their civil rights work. The landmarks of their love story can be seen all over the city of Boston, but one of the most notable is the Love Story mural. Painted on the side of what is now an apartment building, it was once the site of the 12th Baptist Church, where King served as the assistant minister from 1951 to 1954.
But that was kind of surprising, because I would have expected Coretta Scott King having this white descendants and being a female in college. I would have imagined that she would have money, you know, wealthy. Her family was wealthy, but come to find out, it was Dr. King who had more money and was living better than Coretta when they first met, which is kind of shocking. She didn't even have a car, and he had a car, so that's something that they considered living better back then. Nowadays, hell, you ain't got no car, or you do got a car, that don't mean you living better, because it's rich people riding the train up here in New York City. Sherry Shepherd rides the train up here in New York City. So yeah, you'll be shocked who you see up here on the train in New York City. Ain't nobody got time for this traffic. They ain't got time for this traffic.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
But right now, we're gonna move into another song, and here is some LaShawn Pace, Safe in His Arm, and the Clark Sisters. After LaShawn Pace, the Clark Sisters pray for the USA. We'll be right back.
So glad, yeah, yeah, oh, yeah. I'm so glad the Lord, save, from the enemy, save, hurt, harm, and danger, I'm safe, from the witches and the warlock, voodoo and hoodoo, oh, I'm safe. He made you a promise. He made you a promise. Yeah, I'm safe. Yeah. Sometimes you got to give the devil 2 snaps in a circle. Now unto him who is able, I'm saved. If you don't like that one, you have to give him a Z formation. No weapon formed against me shall prosper. I'm saved. Do y'all believe it? Well, help me finish it. Here's give the Lord a great praise. Thank you, Jesus. Come on and tell him thank you for keeping me safe, Lord. Hallelujah. Come on, come on, come on, come on. Thank you, Jesus. I heard one minister say, clapping confuses the devil. Thank you for Kierra. Shahaya. Do you feel like confusing him? Stay! Yeah. Just jump to your feet and right back and say, I'm sorry. You can't find me because I'm here in the Word of God. I'm sorry. Woo. Thank you for the blood of Jesus. My choir here sings the song, I plead the blood of Jesus. Sit down.
Binge Radio. Sunday Flirt.
Karen, no, she be singing. Anyway, guys, I am Rico Blucci. Fun fact number 3, Mrs. King believed that her husband's assassin, James Earl Reid, did not act alone, and that Memphis police, the United States government, and the mafia all conspired to kill her husband. And that's something that I've heard before. One day I was in New Birth, and I had a book, and the book did not have a cover. The cover was off, so it was just a bare orange book, chapter book. And Bernice King asked me to come in. When I came over to her, she said, "What are you reading?" I told her what I was reading. It's called a book by James Earl Reid, saying, kind of saying he didn't do this. He was framed, he was set up. And Bernice King told me to read the book to the end and dig deeper because he's not the one that killed my father. And I'm a kid and I'm like, whoa, what? I'm studying this. I'm into Dr. King's life, and you're telling me that James Earl Reid, your family, does not believe that this man killed your father. So she scrolled through the book and she was just telling me, I got to do my own research. I got to dig deeper. I got to find out the facts, and I'll see who the real killer was. So, that really astounded me. And that wasn't my first encounter with Bernice King, but that was an encounter with Bernice King, one of many encounters with Bernice King. Like I said, she was my mentor. That was not the time that I met Bernice King. I met Bernice King when I was a young boy at New Birth, and she was new to New Birth. I had already been there, but I was a young boy intrigued with the story of Dr. King. So being intrigued, and so I was already intrigued with Dr. King and his family's life and everything. So to have Bernice King here at New Birth, I had to meet her. And so when I met her, she was very interested in me. The first thing she said was that God had a calling on my life, that she sees prophecy on my life, and she sees that God has a greater calling for me in all of this. And she wanted to get my number. She wanted me to be around more. She told my mom to come here. My mom, very shy, didn't want to go. She was very astounded, like, oh God, okay. She told my mom come here. She wanted to keep in touch. She asked my mom a lot about me, and my mom told her a lot about what I was going through. At the time, my mom was trying to get this homosexual thing out of me. She didn't want me to be gay. I was a young boy. She could see that I was very feminine. I had been molested. I had been raped. She felt like, okay, he's straying away. I need help. And so Bernice King was like, okay, you know what? I have somebody who I'm going to put in his life. I can't put myself in his life with him having his father dead and his mom is in his life. It's like another woman getting in his life. So a man needs to be in his life. And so Bernice King hooked me up with Kevin Bentley, which is her security guard. Kevin Bentley, mentored me for a short period of time before I really just felt like it was something that he didn't really want to do. It felt like he was being forced to do this. It felt like he was being forced to do this. So I wasn't really interested in having him as my mentor. So I kind of strayed away from that, but I stayed in touch, stayed with Bernice King, always talked to Bernice King, always communicating with her, going to her side at New Birth when I go to church, stuff like that. So I did already talk a little bit. I'm sorry, that's my producer. I did already talk a little bit about the book that I got, but I remember this time my mom bought Bernice King twice. My mom has bought her a Swarovski crystal teddy bear that is, that sits up on a shelf or up on a dresser or something, and it was about this tall, and about this wide, and it was a crystal teddy bear. We went all the way to Lenox Mall, Swarovski, and got that. And then again, another birthday of Bernice King, my mom ended up buying her this huge circle watch. I mean circle clock, huge circle clock, big as 3 or 4 heads, with all of her family on the background of it from Swarovski crystal. So it was a Swarovski crystal clock that my mom bought her, huge, with balloons and cake and all this stuff. And I remember her giving me this necklace that said "Be a King" dog tag necklace, and a rice with a signature in it, and I loved it so much. It broke so many times, ended up getting it fixed. I think my mom has it at in her storage. But I really wanted to get Bernice King on here, and it didn't work out for me, unfortunately, right? Anyway, so Coretta Scott King not believing James Earl Ray acted alone is not surprising. So another thing I wanted to talk about, Coretta Scott King and the King family not believing that James Earl Ray acted alone. So you guys have to do your research and go look up James Earl Ray. Before he passed away, unlike a lot of murderers who don't reveal anything, who don't end up telling their life story or what they really did, James Earl Ray seemingly came out and told this whole story, how he was framed by the FBI. He was told, he was given a gun, told to run. I read this entire chapter book. And when you read it, you begin to get compelled, and you begin to feel like, wow, the FBI, the mafia, and everything Coretta Scott King believes is true. She believes the U.S. government, the mafia, the FBI, all of these people conspired to kill her husband, and she may be right. And James Earl Ray was a political person. He was actually out there either prior to the situation or the same day as the situation, passing out political flyers for a presidency, for somebody's John F. Kennedy or somebody presidency. And somehow he gets caught up in the running, and supposedly a gun was passed to him or something like that, and he was framed, completely framed. So people say James Earl Ray, but the family says not just James Earl Ray. James Earl Ray was put up to do this.
Dexter King arrived at this Nashville prison to meet the man serving time for the death of his father, Dr. Martin Luther King.
Long anticipated visit.
The youngest son wanted to look into the eyes of a terminally ill James Earl Ray and ask one question in particular.
Did you kill my father?
No, I didn't know.
And then King offered this.
I believe you, and my family believes you, and we are going to do everything in our power to try and make sure that justice will prevail.
Their meeting became a 1-hour friendly encounter. King and Ray sat only 3 feet across from one another. King listened intently to a frail 69-year-old Ray who was battling liver disease. They talked briefly about Ray's health and of hope that the courts will soon give Ray the trial he never had. In 1969, Ray confessed to killing Dr. King, but later recanted, saying he was framed. Over the years, Ray has tried unsuccessfully to get a trial. Last February, the King family testified in Memphis to help reopen the case. An appellate court is now considering the request. Prison doctors have said without a liver transplant, Ray has only months to live, and no donor has been made available. That continues to heighten the King family's concern. Ray may never tell his version of the truth in court. After the meeting, King said it was a success.
I can now feel somewhat relieved that, I heard with my...
And so a lot of people, when they hear that from Bernice King, or they hear that from Coretta Scott King or somebody in the family, it's kind of like, whoa, y'all don't even believe that he did it. Y'all, see, they're from Atlanta, first of all. They ATL and they black. So, of course, we got a higher way of thinking. They don't believe that it was the surface. They're thinking deeper than the surface. Why would the FBI not want him dead? They've been threatening him. They've been trying to kill him. They've been trying to get me to leave him, sending me videos and pictures and recordings of him cheating. So why would I not believe that the FBI, the U.S. government, because the president hates him too, why would I not believe that they're not out to kill my husband? So I completely agree, and I can understand their thought process completely. Being that, you know, this man got threats daily, constantly, hourly, you know, constant physical threats and verbal threats, literally. I must say that James Earl Ray is now deceased. He died in prison, unable to really fully tell his truth. But he did do a few interviews, and Coretta Scott King also as well has spoken out about her belief on the whole situation.
The Urban Binge Radio Podcast,
where we discuss viral topics, hot jams, new artists, fun, and informative interviews and conversations. This is your news stop for the hottest trend in urban culture news. 2 shows, 1 podcast, The Urban Binge Show and Sunday Flow Show, powered by The Urban Binge.
The Urban Binge Radio Podcast. Listen anywhere podcast can be heard.
Haters like, am I going to hell for the things that I could wear? I ain't gonna hide my blessings.